Meanwhile, China's rulers are a very busy lot. In the middle of a pandemic, they're fighting diplomatic battles and trade wars. They're engaged in military posturing on sea and land. They're changing laws to control Hong Kong, and they're carrying out an anti-corruption drive. You've got to give it to them, they can multitask. But why now is the question. To be fair, the anti-corruption drive is not new. It's as old as Xi Jinping's presidency. He has jailed hundreds of top generals and party officials in the past few years in the name of fighting graft. And he's doing it again. Why now? Is the president consolidating power in the name of fighting graft? Before we answer that, let's tell you what happened. Location Xinjiang, the far west of China, the same region where Uyghur Muslims live, in detention camps. Target, a senior cadre in charge of propaganda and education. The name is Ren Hua, the deputy chairperson of the regional government, suspected of serious violations of discipline and law. In other words, charged with corruption. Ren is the fifth senior official to be investigated this year. 5 senior officials charged with corruption in the middle of a virus outbreak. For all the pride that China takes in its governance, this crackdown is counterintuitive. Or is it? In 1986, Ren Hua started off as a clerk in the Communist Party's regional office in Xinjiang. Over the years, she crossed paths with some powerful people. She rose through the ranks. There are others. Li Zi, the city's party chief from 2006 to 2009. In 2016, Li was sentenced to jail for 12 years on bribery charges. Noor Bekri, chairman of the Xinjiang government from 2008 to 2014. In 2019, Noor Bekri was sentenced to life in prison on bribery charges. So you see, in the last few years, Xinjiang's regional corruption watchdog has detained a former deputy mayor, a former deputy director of transport, and a former deputy commissioner. This is a crackdown on former senior officials in Xinjiang. Did they possess information that Beijing wanted to hide? This is an important question because Xinjiang is a politically sensitive region for China, and the world is watching now. There are detention camps for Uyghurs. There are unfounded claims of terrorist threats. Xinjiang is the most intensely monitored region in China. So this investigation into former officials is curious, and it does not look like an anti-corruption drive. It's a purge. By the way, Xi Jinping's anti-corruption drive only targets his critics and potential rivals. And I can explain how. Do you remember the Panama Papers? They named leaders from all over the world, including from China. Governments have fallen because of Panama Papers, but not in China. Here they named the country's most powerful politicians. The Panama Papers even named President Xi Jinping's brother-in-law. China called them groundless accusations. China was perhaps the only country in the world where Panama Papers were not news. Websites were ordered to purge all reports related to them. As usual, the state-run Global Times called it an American conspiracy. So much for the fight against corruption. As questions are raised over Beijing's handling of the outbreak, over Xi Jinping's handling of the outbreak, there has been talk of a power struggle in Beijing. Some reports say it has reached the very top. President Xi Jinping versus Premier Li Keqiang. We cannot verify it, but who can in China? At the recent National People's Congress, here is what happened. The Premier, Li, said China must leave room for fiscal, financial and social security policies. He basically said the government should spend on its 600 million poor people. The President, Xi Jinping, openly countered him. He's said to have criticized Li Keqiang's welfare approach. So he publicly criticized and rejected an economic policy put forth by his premier. Such open disagreement is rare in the Communist Party. You can join the dots. Here is what's happening in China. There's a president who's under pressure. There are record job losses. There's a slowing economy. There's public anger. There are questions within the party. There are reports of a power struggle and a tougher crackdown now in the name of fighting corruption. This is Xi Jinping's graft purge.